That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about DALILAND, the sixth film directed by Mary Harron, which was the official closing film of the 2022 Toronto International Film Festival. It is being released June 9th, 2023, courtesy of Magnolia Pictures.
This director's other films?
She's probably best known for her sophomore effort, American Psycho, which, dare I say, is a classic. More often than not, she does tend to direct films that are based on real-life events, like her debut, I Shot Andy Warhol. She did Notorious Betty Page, even Mr. Manson with 2018's Charlie Says. To me, this is her worst film since The Moth Diaries. But notably, you also did watch one of her television productions, which was the Anna Nicole Smith film, which I believe starred Agnes Bruckner.
Well, unfortunately, I really disliked this movie.
It's sad. I feel like I intensely disliked it as well, not only because of the extreme missed opportunity to properly convey the talents of who I think is one of the most significant artists ever, and whose body of work, you know, who's classified mostly as a surrealist, is out of this world. And to not even touch on that visually is one of many tragedies, I think, in this film.
So one description I read said, in 1973, a young gallery assistant goes on a wild adventure behind the scenes as he helps the aging genius Salvador Dali prepare for a big show in New York. And then another description I read said that this is about the tempestuous marriage to muse and wife Gala during the 1970s.
Or as Ben Kingsley keeps saying, Gala!
It's both. It's kind of like cut into two parts. Man, I don't even know where to begin.
Well,
so I guess the center of the story, or the main character, is James,
the gallerist,
the assistant,
played by a newcomer, Christopher Briney. And you know how you have an intense dislike for Mackenzie Davis? I feel like I felt that for this man.
Who's Mackenzie Davis?
That young white actress that you've seen a lot. She played Kristen Stewart's girlfriend in The Happiest Season.
Well, funny you mentioned her, because I thought the actor playing James looked like if you mixed Kristen Stewart with Pennywise.
Bill Skarsgård.
Yeah.
Don't sully Tim Curry. And I kept thinking of Dane DeHaan a bit with his eyes. But again, partially it's his fault, and partially it's this script by John Walsh. And I don't know, the script does a disservice to everyone, but Briney in particular, and what's-her-face from True Blood, Suki Waterhouse, terrible. Downright terrible.
So the story is James works at a gallery, and the gallery features Salvador Dali's works in New York. So he is basically plucked by Dali's wife, Gala, to sort of entertain them because she finds him attractive. And we learn very quickly that the two of them are creeps.
Yeah, they're both predatory.
But Dali takes a liking to James right away and says, okay, I need to prepare for an exhibit in 3 weeks. I don't have my shit together, so you're going to work with me as my assistant. And during that time...
And he picks him because he looks like neither boy nor girl. He is a Saint Sebastian, who of course is the patron saint of gays, but...
So we go through this 3 weeks. Dali does paint a bunch, and he successfully pulls off the gallery or the exhibition, except that no one buys any of his paintings. So Dali offers, Dali's manager offers James a gig to go with them to Europe to help Dali.
I think Catalonia, but...
That's in Europe.
Yes.
Well, he tells them 2 places. He says Spain and France. Mm-hmm. So they go both places. But anyway, they end up out there, and for some reason, James feels like he needs to meddle in their affairs. Because there's kind of a suspense portion of it. Or not suspense, but like there's something going on as far as like fraud. Like Dali's paintings and money are being mismanaged.
Yes.
But it's very peripheral and ridiculous because James confronts Dali like, I think this person's stealing from you. Your wife knows about this. She gave this painting to her boyfriend. Mm-hmm. Dali gets upset And then we transition.
An argument ensues. Gala is injured, and then, of course, James is dismissed.
And this is in 1974, I believe, like 1974 to 75. So then we fast forward not to 1985, because after James tells Dali about what is going on, he gets fired. So then in 1985, we see, and the film opens with a soundbite of the Dali being injured. So, the Dali.
Dalí.
Dali. The way they keep saying his name and his wife's name is so weird. But James, for some reason, who's now stationed, like his home base is in New York, decides to fly to Spain because he heard that Dali is in the hospital and he wants to return something to him. And that's how the film ends. Mm-hmm. Man.
Yeah.
So you know way more about Dali than I do. I can just conjure images of his work. So my impression of him is that he's like a surrealist.
Well, yeah. I mean, he started out with Buñuel making The Andalusian Dog and L'Âge d'Or. He did work on several Hollywood productions creating dream sequences such as Hitchcock's Spellbound. And he was also a personality, not unlike Warhol, who was always kind of messing with people's minds and what's really going on.
So I brought that up because just from my limited knowledge, I expected the film to feel much more decadent and have very sort of like intriguing and unusual visuals. But I thought this movie looked like if someone made a parody of like a real movie. It looks like a skit.
It's very flat, which, you know, we've reviewed other films with cinematographer Marcel Ziskin, including The Day Shall Come, and I don't think this does him any favors whatsoever. It's just, for a film about a very out-of-the-box painter, this film is incredibly square.
And there are some cinematic touches I didn't like. For instance, when we get footage of like outdoors, it's made to look more vintage, like 70s. Mm-hmm. But then when we get indoors, it's clearly like modern time.
Yeah, when we're indoors, it never feels like the 70s.
No, but even some of the outdoor scenes, it's like 50-50. Sometimes it looks like HD, clear as day, and then sometimes it does look grainy. So it felt inconsistent. And then we get a couple of scenes where people are driving, and the green screen of that looks so bad that I almost think it's on purpose. And then I was thinking, maybe that should have been the vibe of the film.
You needed somebody at the level and who could command the production of Luchino Visconti to have made a Dalí film. And there's plenty of footage of Dalí as an older man. I mean, he was supposed to be in Jodorowsky's version of Dune, if you remember. And I don't know, he was just such a kooky weirdo. I think I was excited initially seeing Ben Kingsley on screen because I do really like Ben Kingsley. And I think that he doesn't have any room to go.
It really did feel like if Ben Kingsley were on SNL and he did a skit about Salvador Dali.
And the same with, I love Barbara Sukowa, who cut her teeth in the works of Fassbinder and is in many, many excellent films. And I think this film doesn't really do her any favors either. And so all these people I like to see.
Let me get through these notes. So James' character is affiliated with Dali when we meet him because he works at the gallery that Dali's work is featured.
The Dufresne Gallery.
And he says like he's a huge fan, and he's also like he loves art. So I feel like the script doesn't really show
art
or this young man's sort of love of art or Dali. And then all of a sudden he decides that he's going to make a scrapbook for Dali with all of Dali's signatures because apparently he varied his signature wildly.
Mm-hmm. On purpose.
And I thought that was so odd. Like, it just came out of nowhere that this kid is like, I made you this scrapbook, here you go. And that's the item that at the end of the film, when James flies across the Atlantic to this hospital where he doesn't know if Dali will even accept him, he gives him the book. That, I didn't care for that. So we didn't mention Ezra Miller's in the film playing young Dali.
Yes, they are. Mm-hmm.
And
nothing to do except give wild, crazy eyes.
Yeah, again, that felt like a parody of a better movie.
It is on par with Robert Pattinson played Salvador Dali in a 2009 film called Little Ashes, which is also terrible. But it was very much giving that vibe of we have to make him seem kind of outrageous and crazy, but in the most boring way.
I was thinking sometimes it's better if we don't try to paint a portrait of an artist as a young man. No, but like,
Okay, James Joyce.
but like, I don't know, the way they paint Dali is just, if I were affiliated with his estate, like his family, I'd be mad as hell. Like, this is how y'all want to show my granddaddy? Like, I just don't
But even, oh God, can you imagine if Ken Russell had made a film about Dalí? Oh my God.
I also think, would the person, that's how I felt about Blonde, like, would Marilyn Monroe like this depiction of her
Well,
life?
no, but
But, you know, but if they're an artist, they might appreciate the artistic, you know, so even if it's not accurate, you know, if someone tells a bad story about me, it's like, well, if it's a good bad story, I'm not mad. Mm-hmm. So that's how I feel about this. Like, would Dali, just even visually, he'd be like, this is some bullshit, right?
yes, he would have shit on this. He would have put a shit painting on
You
this.
already alluded to this, but I don't know Suki Waterhouse. She's stunning.
Beautiful.
And good thing she
Gals.
is, because this performance was, and I think it's also the dialogue.
The dialogue's not good, but there was if Barbara Sukowa doesn't have good dialogue either, but at least she's making it work well enough.
Well, she's chomping through this.
She's chomping through it, but Suki Waterhouse, the scene where she's got to get through all this exposition to James when like Amanda Lear comes to the party and she's like, but you don't know your place here in this milieu. She doesn't even use that word, but she seems bored. She seems utterly bored. And I've never watched True Blood. I think she was a boring centerpiece for the Bad Batch, and we did review her in Seance from 2021, but...
So Gala, Dolly's wife, they have like an open relationship because we find out that Dali doesn't have sex and he's only ever had intercourse with Gala.
According to
Suki's character.
Suki's character, yeah.
And so he just likes to be a voyeur and he masturbates, and apparently one of his works is called The Great Masturbator.
Yeah.
But his wife likes men. That's how James got into this predicament. But more importantly, she's dating a young man who's playing Jesus Christ Superstar on Broadway.
Jeff Fenholt, yeah.
And she gives him he's, you know, he's using this old lady for money. But at one point she's financing his like record, like he's going to record an album. And so we get a scene, which I thought was one of the better scenes, where he's recording music and it's not good music. And then Gala says, these songs will change the world. And the way the sound engineer looks at her, that was the only thing.
That was the only kind of self-aware moment I think this film had.
Yeah.
Because Christopher Briney's performance is...
Well, so... There are other, I mean, you can think of more examples than I can, but immediately I thought My Salinger Year or The Devil Wears Prada,
Yes.
where there's an assistant and we're seeing, like, that's, the assistant's the main character, but we're also seeing this more sort of notable person.
There's conduit into this
Right.
lavish world that we never get to see behind the scenes of.
And in My Salinger Year, I didn't think that was the best movie. Obviously, Sigourney Weaver's the best part of it, but I feel like that handled this. I mean, they're two very different figures.
Well, because what's the balance here? You don't want to stay too far away from the more extravagant subject, and also you have to make this young acolyte likable. Like
that's what I was trying to say.
Margaret Qualley in My Salinger Years likable. Anne Hathaway's questionably likable.
They don't have to be likable, just interesting.
Sure.
James is not interesting, including we get a scene because this script, I don't know if he fell in love with Suki Waterhouse, even though he met her at an orgy and she clearly is like being passed around. But for some reason he has feelings for her, and one day he catches her interacting with another man. And she gets up to greet him and basically says, well, why don't you join in? Mm-hmm. So we see James and the man interacting.
While Dalí looks on.
While Dalí is watching and masturbating, which was so awkward. Like, it was not provocative or...
I don't mind.
It didn't feel honest either.
It did, but I wish it had strayed more into that territory, like this, the weirdness that's going on.
But then we don't get in... So then James does this thing and then we never talk about it, and then he even questions Dolly's sexuality. Mm-hmm. But it's like, girl, I have questions about yours.
And then we get more boring dialogue from Suki Waterhouse about there isn't a name for what Dalí's sexuality is.
It was so flat. So the best scene in the movie to me and it's not even the actual scene, it's the music playing. But Dali gets inspired, like he wants to paint asses. So we have a scene where he's getting all these beautiful women to dip their asses in paint and put it on a canvas, which was so...
Farrah Fawcett did that.
But it just didn't look like anything, and then we never see the finished product. Why did we sit through that scene? But the best part of the movie, I think, is during that scene, we hear that song, Could I Be Falling in Love by the Spinners. I did enjoy that.
Oh, and then someone's playing Alice Cooper, who is the most un-Alice Cooper you've ever seen.
Oh, that's my next note. The Alice Cooper and the guy playing Jesus Christ Superstar look like they're at a Halloween party.
They do. They went to Party City for the production designer, I guess, didn't have a lot of coin to work with.
Then I don't know if this is Dali's most famous painting, but if I think about Dali, I think about the melted clock.
That is a very big one.
So then the film does reference it, and we see like Ezra Miller as young Dali, like sitting in his little hut, and like young Dali has like a round of what looks like brie.
Or is it camembert? I don't know.
It looks like brie to me.
It's a soft cheese.
But it's a soft cheese and it's melting. And then he looks at it and then all of a sudden like a clock appears like from a projector. I thought that was such a chintzy way to show what inspired this artist's maybe most famous work.
The creative process.
Yeah.
I don't know. My second favorite Dali portrait.
Dali portrait. Go ahead.
Is the Mae West, where her lips are the couch.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
But my favorite is autumnal cannibalism, where the two creatures are kind of joined together. Because to me, I remember seeing that for the first time and thinking like, oh, that's how love disfigures us.
No, I thought you were going to say the next best scene. I think another good scene that maybe if this movie would have had that tone, it would have worked, is we see Gala praying, like, please God, don't let me get old, and blah, 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 blah. And she has this shrine. And then when we see what she's praying to, it's a picture of her boyfriend dressed as Jesus Christ Superstar. It's just so weird, but not in a fun way, and it's not weird enough.
No, because it's using all these standard cliches of how these stories are told about this, this brief moment in the life of a notable artist at the end of their tether.
Again, why does James care about what's going on with this crazy-ass old married couple?
The fact that he would inject his way into their relationship and think, these are two old, crazy people. Like, what do you want to happen?
And you've witnessed them be unreasonable and crazy and violent with each other.
But they also have their own rhythm that works for them. What are you doing?
And they have this, like, open why... I don't know. This is why I don't butt into people's personal affairs, because you never know what they have going on. But... I don't understand, like the way it's written, we don't understand James' motivation. Do you want to be like, because he says he realized that he's not an artist, he just likes art. But then you love Salvador Dali, you go to Europe, like, what was your goal? And now you're trying to save his business? I don't understand.
And then he butts in while Dali is painting Amanda Lear naked, who we see naked, and then has this... kind of said it's not a private moment either. Like, you're saying his business.
Don't you know? Else? You know this man well enough to know that if you interrupt his process, he's going to be mad. And then you interrupted with telling him that everyone's stealing from him
and his wife.
And who knows? Like, I don't know if this like is based on someone's memoirs, and this really is how.
It's not.
But that's the script. So dumb. This review's a mess because I thought this movie was a mess. I don't really have anything else to say except at the end, it felt so anticlimactic. So James flies 11, 10, 9 years later to go see Salvador Dali, not knowing if he's even available. And then...
Two things about that. To make him look a little older, they put some glasses on him, even though it's only 9 years. So how much was he going to age? Amanda Lear's sobbing in the hospital lobby.
And we find out that she's like a now famous pop star. What are the odds that you both show up at the same time, and why are you even there?
But she's just having a quiet sob to herself because Dali won't see her because he feels ugly. And ostensibly it's just so that she can be there to fill him in on that, because she just leaves after they have that exchange.
But the end is, so James runs to the doctor like, please, I need to see Dali. I used to work for him. He knows me, please. And the doctor's like, no. But then he sees Dali being like pushed in a wheelchair towards him, so he stops him. And he says, I want to give you this book. It belongs to you. And Dali's looking all crazy. Although he's supposed to have been burned, he didn't look burned at all. And he looks at James and says Saint Sebastian, which is what you've already referenced. So when Dali gets pushed away, he tells the doctor, see, he knew me. He called me Saint Sebastian. That's what he used to call me. And the doctor goes, in this region, this country, like, we refer to all young men as Saint Sebastian. Like, I was Saint Sebastian as a kid. Like, he burst his bubble so hard.
It's like you didn't have to do all that.
I flew from New York.
But I would have been annoyed if I was that doctor because he's like, do you know how much this means to me?
I don't give a shit.
This is a hospital.
Right.
Get your ass out of here.
Okay, we need to end this because I have things to do. What would you give this movie?
I'm sorry. I am a Mary Harron fan for the most part. I was disappointed. I'd give it a 1.
I would give it 1 out of 5. Anything else?
No.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.